Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
More Luke.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This might surprise you, but this is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
What's going on, guys? John Zannis, Noa Dalzell, and careful Noah. We're going to be on for about 30 minutes together before we get Bobby from Washington. You might end up agreeing with me again, so it's.
Oh yeah, it's very possible.
It's something. It's possible. It's possible, not probable. But we're here. Celtics win again. You know, it's the Wizards. I'm looking at a Pistons logo. That's okay. We know what happened. We know what happened in this game. Celtics defeat the Wizards. And honestly, like these games with the Wizards, I don't know, man. This is like a case for relegation, like with the NBA. I'm almost mad that you have to end up playing a game against these teams. And I think Drew said it on the broadcast. I don't know if you picked it up, or maybe it was Scal. It's almost like the Celtics are like practicing stuff.
Scal said that, yeah.
Scal. And like, I think they are. The way Jaylen Brown approaches these games is kind of funny because like a past version of us like might have been like, "What? Jaylen's not taking it seriously. You got to play hard for 82 all the time." And now I don't think that at all. I actually think it's kind of funny because like he knows, he's like, these guys aren't beating us, and like, let's see what we can do. It's almost like, I know you probably spent a good deal amount of time on it last game, the prophecy coming true of Peyton Pritchard dominating against Detroit. And here you are. It's like, I don't know, just pick your poison, do whatever you want here, and play this team. Before we get too far, and Jackson, keep us honest here on any developments. There could be a massive shadow over all of this because Kristaps Porzingis, who's now played in 7 games, has left 2 of them with injuries. And this one was, I hate, and we'll get into the game. Look, I'm a doomer boomer, you know, and I can't help it. I'm until somebody tells me everything's going to be okay, I'm always worried. I hate that it was heel and not foot that they pointed out here. I hate that. I hate heel because anything to do with Achilles heel or anything and tendonitis or fear of rupture, the soleus, all of that. I hate hearing heel pain. And he gimped off here. So again, put your level of concern on the Porzingis injury on a 1 to 10, and we'll get back to it if and when we get any updates as the game goes on. But your thoughts there before we talk about the rest of it.
Yeah, my thoughts on the Porzingis injury is that I don't think this one is major cause for concern, just because they wouldn't have listed him as questionable to return. If it was something where like maybe he ruptured something, he'd be out or doubtful at the very least. Questionable is a good sign. It means that he's dealing with pain, but not necessarily an injury, is my interpretation. That being said, my level of concern about Porzingis in general is pretty high.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like there's been 7 games that he's played in this year. 2 of them he left with injuries. They're resting him, they're load managing him, they're doing everything right, he's working hard, and it's just I feel like it's just playing with fire. So I hate to say it. I'm like such a big Porzingis fan. I love what he adds to this team, but you just you worry about the prospect of him going through the playoffs, let alone, you know, a stretch of regular season games. It just seems like it's always something, and it's the lower leg injuries. And if you look at the way he's built, it makes sense. But that is I am very concerned about that. Just him in general. I have been for a long time now, but I think with this particular one, I would be surprised if we saw some massive update. But yeah, I think just in general, yes, I am concerned.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And there's this question, would you listen to offers for a lesser? No, because they won a championship without Porzingis. So you already know at this point, Porzingis is sadly like not the person. I hate saying this, you know, however many games into you know, the year we are here, 20 something, that I've already kind of changed my view on who Porzingis is for this team as kind of like a bonus. Like, oh, when they have him, they're really unbeatable, but it's almost like you can't fully count on it because it's like more of a dream than a reality. Like when it's there, it's amazing. And it feels like literally nothing can change, but like, I'm less counting on it than I am devastated if and when it goes away. I think it not being there when you get to a critical point in the season or the playoffs is possible, if not likely at this point. I don't know if that's an overly pessimistic view.
Yeah, I don't think it's overly pessimistic, and that's not a good sign when I think that, because I think it's just realistic based off what we've seen from him. He had a really relatively healthy regular season last year. I mean, I think it was his best in a long time, and even so, he dealt with two major injuries in the playoffs. One that kept him out the majority of the playoffs, and obviously the finals injury that lingered into this fall. He just got cleared. He's already rolled his other ankle. You know, this whatever this heel thing is. So my concern is that it's not like he keeps getting whacked in the face and he's just having a string of bad luck. It's the same type of play, these awkward turns, the awkward catches that just seem to follow him no matter what he's doing or what he's trying. I see the report here from Postgame is that Missoula hasn't heard anything, but that Porzingis was in good spirits. Doesn't really mean anything. He's never heard anything. And also, I always point back to in the finals, he said there was zero concern. And then I will never forget that because I remember I was my first year on the beat and I was thinking like, okay, so we're in good shape here, and then learn my lesson. So it doesn't really mean anything. That's the takeaway from postgame, I guess. But yeah, I am concerned about him long term just because it seems like it constantly happens.
Anyone, of a certain age, or older, who remembers the Kevin Garnett roller coaster that we went on in 2009, and how they discussed that injury. It migrated, from back of the knee to thigh to this and that. They just didn't want to say what it was, and it really ruined his career and ruined the chance at a dynasty there, because it just was something he never recovered from. You never know when that's going to happen. I don't think anything's happened to Porzingis yet. It's that thing that you talk about, which is like every time he jumps, every time he runs, every time he does something, I'm always like, oh, he stepped weird and he's gimpy right now. Is that it? Did we lose him for 15 games? I don't think that's going away.
On the flip side, he's good at coming back from injuries, and they're very good without him. So that's like just putting it all out there like that. Those are the two components that make me optimistic in general. Is that even if he hurts something, like we know he can come back without really missing a beat. And then also they can afford to not have him for stretches of time. So, we'll see what this is. I don't think this is going to be a serious thing. Again, also all of these games, it's like he's so optional that if he's dealing with anything, they're not going to play him. So maybe he would have come back.
Which is fine. Yeah, you know what? I always hate these stupid, like, put him in bubble wrap until the playoffs, comments that people make regarding everything. I honestly think that is what you want to do with Porzingis, but because it's not a matter of wear and tear. It's really just it's a game of roulette with him. I feel like it's frequency. If he plays 60 games, it's just a greater chance he gets hurt in one of them. It's not the amount that he plays. It's not like, 30 minutes, 32, they wore him down. Right. It's literally just, he's kind of a walking accident waiting to happen. So I would reduce, I'm all on board with the load management train. And again, any injury that should take 2 to 3 days or 5 to 7, I'm all for doubling the timeline, because again, the last thing you want to do is have him come in and overcompensate for something he's not feeling and try to tough something out, and exacerbate it or make it worse. So again, we'll move on because we don't know anything, and there's no reason to fear the worst. But it is definitely something that I don't think it's ever going away. You're always going to worry about it. You're always going to think it. You're always going to feel it. So we'll see what happens here. As for the game itself, as you said, and again, going back to Bickerstaff's comments prior to the Detroit game before. The lack of selfishness on this team again is constantly on display. I really do think, and I'm glad it was said, and I'm glad it was discussed. I would say if there was anything that concerned anybody about this team last year was how are they going to share it? How's that going to work? Are they going to accept less? Are they going to be able to do that? And they did, but still, at the end of the day, Tatum got his shots up. Brown got his shots up. They didn't sacrifice that much, really. Maybe if anybody did, it was Holiday. But for the most part, people that or Porzingis, who's maybe used to being more of an alpha on the teams that he was on, but those guys came in. The guys who were here didn't have to cede too much. Now it legit feels like I don't think anybody. And Brown's always a guy who some people were concerned with, like, is this guy worried about putting up his stats to get his all-stars, to get his contract, to get where he wants to be, to get his awards or his acclaim at the end of the year? Is a chip on the shoulder going to drive him, or the point is he's got to kind of get his to feel comfortable? And I think he might care less than anybody now about numbers or stats. I mean, I don't think he cared if he scored a point tonight in this game. And you see a lot of that from him. You're seeing it from Tatum. I don't think anybody cares at all. I think they're almost addicted to the process of like, how can we just get everybody something, or just keep getting all of these open threes and break the NBA the way that we have right now. And they just keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I just wrote a story about this for SB Nation, but I think we only watch this Celtics team for the most part. I mean, we watch League Pass and things, but night in, night out, we're covering this team. And so to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about this team is so unselfish every time I watch, because this is the basketball I'm used to watching and covering. And then I noticed every coach that comes into TD Garden, where we have our post-game presser, they find a way at some point to say, this team is so unselfish. Like, this was not how they were a few years ago. The ball movement is crazy. Like, it's really hard to prepare for because you don't know who's going to hurt you. It's like, that is the thing. That is the word around the league, around these Celtics, is that you just don't know who's going to hurt you. They know they're going to pass to Drew Peterson in the corner, or to Xavier Tillman. Like, there's full faith and trust in everybody, and it's not hinging on, are you an all-star? Are you Tatum? Are you Brown? I think that's even more the thing than just they're willing to pass, is the fact that they actually have faith in literally the entire roster, and that's just like part of the culture. And I went back and looked, like Doc Rivers said similar things. Eric Spoelstra said similar things. Guys that have been around and they've competed against a lot of basketball teams. This team really stands out. I thought tonight was a perfect example of what that looks like in full function, is just when everybody's hitting shots, everybody's getting looks, nobody's forcing theirs. And I do think Jaylen Brown, I don't know if it's the finals MVP from last year. I would imagine you got the highest individual accolade in basketball in my eyes. Maybe it took a little bit of a load off. You're not as worried about proving yourself. But certainly, I think you see that from him as much as anybody right now.
It is weird. I do think Jaylen feels like he got in the club last year, where he was always kind of like just on the outside looking in. And again, he still doesn't make all NBA last year. So he's still knocking on that door of like, I know he wants to just be a set it and forget it perennial all NBA type player, all-star berths automatic. You know that he's going every single year. And then not have to really concern himself with it at that point, and then just let his play speak for itself. I think in everybody's eyes, reputationally, he's now clicked over into that group. You even see all of these preseason rankings about like best NBA players and this and that. And he didn't fall below, on most of them. I know Hardwood, they had a weird list where somebody put him at 40 something, but for the most part, everyone's got in their mind has Jaylen as a top 15 player now. Yeah. And that's just kind of where he lives. So yeah, maybe he did care less, and maybe they are kind of addicted to, like, let's just do this again. This is fun. It's fun watching teams get frustrated. And like, it is a beautiful thing watching this team play basketball when they decide like, all right, let's do the thing where we put the team away and just watch them work it. And I feel like there's more instances of them going through the process and believing in the process than just finding your matchup and give it to a guy and just let him cook. I think even in games that they'd lost, which is the loss I'm thinking of most recently, I still think they went.
Memphis was their most recent loss.
I still think they went through their process there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they just didn't hit the shots, and they were tired legs on the second night of a back-to-back on that one too. But they did not. They went through all of their steps there. The shots just didn't fall. I think they've gotten really, really good at doing that, which is great, because I think that's one of the things that, any naysayers or fans who are frustrated with inconsistent play were clamoring about them doing, is just do the thing you do, move it, do the thing that works. I think like it seems like there's just no hangover concern off of the championship. And again, it makes it so much easier for them to half-ass their way through games like this. Not saying they did, but they can, because they can flip a switch. That's what's amazing, is they just, let's just do the thing where we just move it around, and then these guys in rotation, and we'll just get our shots, and that's that. And they do it every game.
Yeah, they really do. And it's honestly really fun to watch. I know there's a lot of discourse around the NBA right now and whether the NBA is fun to watch or why the ratings are down. And part of the reason why I have a hard time with this conversation is because the team that I cover is really fun to watch, like a night in and a night out. And I think that, other teams are trying to emulate that, but we've heard coaches say like that is not what you're seeing around the league, believe it or not. I know we have bigger staff on it, but that is kind of the takeaway from people when they're watching this team is that it really stands out in comparison to other teams, and you see other teams like almost do a poor man's version of it. But when you're doing a poor man's version of it, it's not it. It's completely different.
That's like everything, right? It doesn't matter the sport. You see somebody do something and you want a piece of it. In the NFL, there's certain types of offenses that people want to emulate, and you get cheap imitators that do it poorly and look bad in the process. And that's what's currently happening in the NBA. To a lesser extent, Noah, the Brad Stevens teams, before they loaded up, and those like even the Isaiah Thomas teams, they wanted to play a style where they were getting guys open and shooting threes and this and that. They just didn't have the shooters, but they've always dreamt, they always had this vision of spread the floor, drive and kick, take a bunch of open threes. That's what we should do. I think it's gone to another level, but you need the personnel. You need a coach with that vision who drives it home, and you need total buy-in. Having all three of those things is extremely difficult. And again, some teams might have it, but you've got guys. I mean, the Celtics are just the rarest of rare, where everyone on the floor can shoot and defend. And that's what everybody's looking for. They just have it. Unless you have that, you can't do it, because you're going to get beat up in one place or another. If you have guys who can't shoot, great. They'll concede the threes and you can take them, and you're just going to brick them all game long. If you guys who can shoot and do nothing else, you're just going to get eaten alive on the other end. So it's really, really, really difficult to be the Celtics, because they have these guys who can do all of it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the personnel is the main thing. And Scal had a couple of funny lines tonight where Brian Keefe was like furious, calling a timeout, and he was like, "It's not your fault, Brian. Like, you don't have the people, you don't have the personnel for it." And certainly Joe has spoken to this. That Joe was asked if he was worried about other teams emulating the Celtics, and he said, you need to have the personnel for it too. So it's not just the philosophy. I think everybody in the world that coaches a basketball team knows that this is the way to do it. That you want to get open threes, you want to get layups. Like, the WNBA is moving in the same direction, but it's one thing to have figured out the formula. It's another thing to be able to actually execute it. And I think we're seeing the intersection of both those teams. Maybe one of the earlier teams to figure out exactly how to do it, but also, the entire roster really kind of fits the mold perfectly there.
Yeah. And we will hear from Bobby in a little bit. He is in Washington. There's no Jimmy or Sherrod, and I hope that doesn't upset you guys out there. But we are going to get reports from Bobby, and there is a report from Porzingis from the locker room, which is good. So I apologize for the panic. I'm sorry. It's just in my nature. I can't help it. But as we said earlier, Porzingis exited the game in the second quarter with right heel pain. Porzingis telling reporters himself that he banged it, which is better than just pulling up and feeling something back there, which is the scary thing when it comes to heel or Achilles or this or that. And I think that jives a little bit more with the reporting that was going on there, which is like he was grabbing his foot, like you might do if and when. You don't really grab a sprained ankle and like rub it and stuff. So like if you're grabbing at the area, it might have been a tenderness. He said he banged it, which is good. And Porzingis says that the exit was entirely precautionary. Not sure if he will miss time yet, but that's that. So again, a contact injury, a bruise, banging it, so much better than feeling something back there and having to come off as a result of it. So I think we can breathe a little bit of sigh of relief, and I'm sorry for anyone I upset or alarmed at the beginning of the show. Yeah. So that, but yeah, back onto it. Where were we right before Porzingis? Sorry. I agree, Ben.
About how it's really hard to emulate the Celtics.
Oh yeah. You can't do it. And that's what we're seeing. Like we saw, so this is going to like set NBA. Thank goodness this stuff happens on the heading into a weekend, because it keeps the talking heads from like just going into it. But between the Celtics, and people saying they need to change the rules because it's boring, and then watching teams do this, missing 75 threes in regulation, and then, you have a 42-41 game in the cup, at the halftime of the cup and this and that. And now the rating stories regarding the NBA and they're plummeting. It is crazy. Normally I think people who cover basketball are just a little bit too defensive about things. really everyone, every fan base, a lot of reporters, I think everyone's really defensive. But I will say, I'm going all the way over to the other side on this. I've never seen a sport where the people who cover it seem to want to bury it as much as they do the NBA. It's freaking insane
I
to me.
completely agree.
I can't.
I'm so glad you said that.
It is so weird to me because like the NFL has changed a ton in many cases for the worse in terms of like the product, because they're trying to protect people, trying to avoid lawsuits, trying to keep it going a little bit longer. They don't want people getting head injuries or this and that. They don't want people getting tuned up. So big hits and a lot of the stuff that people used to love with football is fine. Hockey's been regulated in the same sort of way where they're trying to reduce fighting and X, Y, and Z. And that's for safety issues. And some people really love that and they miss the old school way of things. But people just kind of roll on with it as a reality of the game. Here, it's insane how many people out there from the old heads who were like, these guys aren't tough, or talking about like how it was. The talent is off the charts here at this point in the NBA. It's so freaking good right now. And yeah, the Celtics might have broken it a little bit with the threes because it might be a little bit too much. And I understand not loving the way that it's going, but it's crazy to me how much, like how bad, like how much people, want to bury the product.
I mean, again, this is such a tough conversation.
A lot of parody too. Yeah, it's great.
I love watching the NBA more than anything. That's why I wanted it to be my job. So it's hard for me to like reason with people, but also we've never seen more talent. We know that. And a lot of times I'm like, what do people want? Because I also cover the WNBA. People are mad whenever the WNBA is like, a lot of people are taking post shots and hook shots, and it's completely what they want in theory, as far as like just different types of shots. And then you get lowlights of like missed layups, you get lowlights of missed threes, but in reality, like field goal percentages have never been higher. So it's not really like we're not going down. I go back and watch games from my childhood where it's like the 2010 finals, like nobody can make one shot. And we love that, right? So I don't know what people want. I do think that social media has made it so that you don't actually have to watch the games. Everybody I know watches clips on social media. They stream on illegally. Like, I don't know anybody that like has cable and watches full basketball games. So I think it's different now, the way that you're
consumed differently.
Yeah. And maybe we need to rethink, like, from a profit standpoint, like I that's not my thing, but I think that there is a conversation to be had there. But if you're tuning into these games on a regular basis, like the actual basketball is as good as it's been. The conversation around it is, I think, has been pretty bad. And there's a lot of great teams that have gotten no coverage, and I'm glad I'm not national media, but I think national media is way too focused on a handful of stars, a handful of teams, and we're missing an opportunity to be really excited about a bunch of players.
That's the thing. And look, I mean, and again, that's why the WNBA is big now, because you've got the star now that you can focus on. ESPN really destroyed things. I hate I find it trite to like heap on ESPN, because like I have no problem with strong takes, strong opinion, even hot takes. Honestly, I think sports discourse is as damaged by people who constantly apologize for their teams and refuse to let in any criticism, or are so concerned with the hot takers that they have to like go over the top in the other direction. I think that's as dangerous as people just spouting a bunch of shit because they want clicks over it. So I don't love the discourse necessarily on either sides, but the ESPN model of switching strictly to star-based coverage is all that matters to them. And when they're not getting it, you see a person like Jason Tatum, who's a near perfect player, and it's like, I don't know, I don't think he's all that, and Luka's bad, like all of this stuff. They really are just. I mean, it wasn't for clicks. People legit talked themselves into Dallas beating Boston last year, which was the dumbest prediction anyone's made in any sport ever, because Luka and Kyrie are more exciting to watch than Tatum and Brown in their eyes. Like, and so they're like, how are they going to deal with these guys? Easily is the answer. Easily. Like they have everybody else. Are you crazy? People believe that. They have actually like, they've wired themselves to believe this stuff. It's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, there's so many different things. We could do a whole show on just like the way that the sport is discussed. But I think the number one thing is that there's so many exciting young players and like middle-aged, I mean, like mid-20s players that people just don't know that well. Like, what do you know about SGA? He's never anywhere, and he's really fun to watch. He's
Josue
actually a
knows.
really interesting player,
Yeah.
and the Thunder are so exciting. I love watching the Thunder, and the NBA should be like, this Thunder team is like an easy layup. Like, let's
Yeah.
put them everywhere. Let's, like, I know people have their mixed feelings on their post-game thing that they all do their interviews together, but it's entertaining. They have a lot of big personalities in that group. Like, why they haven't been elevated as the next big thing to watch when they've had back-to-back seasons as the number one seed in the West, I don't know. So there's a lot of, I understand the frustration of other fan bases when it comes to, I agree, but I haven't understand a lot of, frustration when it comes to other fan bases being like, my team is not being elevated because and it's going to hurt the league because they're riding the coattails of like LeBron and Steph, who I understand why they were the big deal for so many years, but eventually you have to move on to the next thing. I think they're just doing it too slowly. So NBA will be okay, but I do think that this has been a bad adjustment between like the different eras and a lack of opportunity, a lack of coverage on guys that could be really, really popular.
Yeah, SGA again, the obscurity of OKC. Maybe it's like people don't find the mid-range game sexy.
But that's what they want, though. They're all mad about the threes.
I love it. That's the best thing
SGA,
about it.
watch him. He doesn't shoot threes. Like
he doesn't shoot threes, not at volume and not at a super high clip. He's just dazzling with his handles, and he breaks people down, and he's pulling up for these mid-range jumpers or going to the basket. He plays defense. He's almost a perfect player. Also, he's amazing to watch. So it is weird, but again, people can't get down with that. They're an amazing team. I mean, we can do an entire other show about where they stack up to Boston, because I mean, last year it was the Celtics and then everyone else down here, and I don't care who you were in the West. Holy crap, is OKC good, and they're playing without Chet right now. So
yeah, it really might be the lack of American stars. Like they don't,
no doubt.
I don't know.
Do we count
I don't know
SGA
why
as not
people
American
care.
just because he's
he's
Canadian? Because he's kind of American. Like Canadians, like American. He's American light. It's not like, but it's not like somebody from a like far away land. Like I don't think.
Yeah, but I mean, he's on the Canadian national team.
I know. But I don't think that matters. I think people like if you didn't. He went to an American college. He's here. He's a product of USA basketball. But he plays for Team Canada.
College.
Huh?
I understand.
Yeah. So like I don't think that. But you're right. If you go through the best players in the league,
a lot of them are not American.
The international from where you're starting with Jokic, Giannis, Luka, and SGA and Embiid prior to this year would have been in that clear top 5 conversation. Everyone else, you're like, who's the best American star? And it's like Tatum and Edwards, and people aren't like fully on board with those guys as being the guys yet. So it's possible, but it is an interesting story. Because I don't know what changes here with that. We do have the Kristaps Porzingis sound. I think people will be heartened not only to hear it, but to see his smiling face. I'm going to play it in just a second. First off, we do want to tell you about our sponsors here at the Garden Report. We're going to, of course, start with Prize Picks, and you know how to play. You just pick 2 players or more, win up to 100 times your money. You pick more, pick less on any stats that you choose. And that is that. Big payouts. If you haven't signed up, all you have to do is go download the app. Any new user, if you use the promo code CLNS and you play 5, you get 50 instantly in your account. You don't have to win. As soon as you play 5, you get 50, and you can play around with that and do whatever you like. And as I said, super fun time of year with multiple sports going on all at once that you can get involved with. A lot of cool features like Flex Friday, Taco Tuesday. You see out there in the screen, you get a lot of promotions that are there all the time. You should check them out, like free squares and lots of different things that you can play with. So as we said, run your game here, okay, with Prize Picks. Sign up today, promo code CLNS for any new user. Play 5, get 50 instantly. Once again, download the app, code CLNS, play 5, get 50 instantly. Also want to tell you about Game Time. You want to get in and check it out. You got 2 more cracks to see the Patriots, not next week, but the last 2. And that's that. You can go check them out. The Celtics are going to have a string of home games coming up. You want to check that out as well, or any concerts, any shows, anything you want to get into. Game Time is the place for you. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Super easy to use, very intuitive. Great features like all-in pricing, so you know what you're paying without a bunch of hidden fees. Panoramic views from your seat. So you know exactly what it is you're going to be looking at when you get there. And you see the code up there on the screen one more time. Download the Game Time app. Use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Let's bring it back to the game. And as we did say, Kristaps Porzingis left the game in the second quarter. It was announced that it was a heel injury. He says the exit was precautionary and all he did was bang his heel, which is great. And here is Kristaps talking about it after the game to our own Bobby Manning.
Anything before you came out of the game there in the second quarter, and what led you go to the locker room?
Yeah. I banged up my heel a little bit in the first quarter not early, but like in the first quarter at some point. I kept on playing. It was nothing major, honestly. More like a precautionary thing. And then like the second when I started, it was pretty sensitive. So I told medical staff, and they just pulled me out the game. I don't think it's anything major.
Had you felt anything before this game? Or
No. I think it happened this game. One of the post-ups or rebounds or one of the lobs. I'm not even sure where. But I've had something similar in the past. I know it's something play through, and it's just a little bit precautionary today.
Love to hear it. Don't play through it, though. Don't do anything. Take as much time as you need, big guy. But, again, good. Do you feel better?
Yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't concerned about this particular injury. I'm still concerned about the pattern. But yeah, this doesn't seem like a big deal. I think if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Drew Holiday were monitored the way that Porzingis is, they would miss a lot of games. They'd be in a lot more headlines. So it's hard. A lot of it is just because we know that there have been times where it's been serious, but it's probably, we also know literally every time he gets banged. So that's part of the issue.
Yeah. I say this anytime anyone puts it in the chat, and it does help. I never like to beg for subscribers or likes or this or that, but it does help us. So yes, if you're watching and you like this, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. If you are watching and you have not subscribed to our YouTube channels where this show is found, please subscribe, turn on your notifications. And anytime we go live, you'll get a little notification about it. And that's that for those who are new to the show. And obviously a lot of returning people. We do this live after every single game, but we also go live when there's breaking news and lots of other times throughout the week. So there's always good opportunities to catch the Garden Report. And as you know, it's me, it's Noah, it's Bobby who will be joining us momentarily. You got Sherrod, you got Jimmy, and we should have a full house for the next Celtics game on Thursday. But again, all of your support is very welcome and appreciated. As for the game, going back to it, I'll let you talk about him while we wait for Bobby to come in, because it never gets super old talking about Peyton Pritchard. But what I like specifically about Pritchard these last couple of games is we were all over Pritchard again because he had gone something like 20-something, a bunch of games in a row. And then he drops that goose egg against Milwaukee, and everyone's like, did he turn back into a pumpkin? I'm not saying
Who was saying that?
Just come on. It's just let me build the narrative. Let me build the story. And everyone was concerned that Pritchard was back to, I remember that guy, the guy who's too small to get his shot off, the guy who, he withers against really good defense or pressure when he's thrust into a starting lineup. There he is again. Everyone was thinking it, Noah. But since that game, he went 22 on 7 of 12 shooting, 27 last game against Detroit, the Jalen prophecy game, and knocks down another 5 3-pointers tonight on 5 of 12 shooting. I honestly felt like he had more points, but then he chips in 11 and 6, this guy today. So all over the stat line. And again, I know you saw it on the broadcast, and I bet you loved it. Him coming off the floor when he was mouthing that he was locking up Jordan Poole. It's the swagger he's playing with, which is awesome, right? Like, he's not like, it can feel for a little while. Like, we would talk about Linsanity as a possible thing to talk about there, but you always felt like that was fleeting, right? Like, maybe, like, is this going to last forever? Like, the Pritchard thing, that is always my concern is at some point, does he kind of revert back? Do we not live in this dreamland anymore where he's doing this on a regular basis? But I don't think he's going to allow it. The level of swagger that he's playing with is totally like a guy who absolutely should be doing this on a nightly basis, not a guy who's just on a heater.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think this is related to being a heater anymore. Honestly, I think that that we've talked about the scoring, we've talked about the shooting. The other things are what have been most impressive. I don't want to sound like Joe Mazzulla over here, but it really is. Like defensively, he has not been a liability this season. I think
I mean, this guy's new. He doesn't know me yet. It's my way. I'm just playing, guys. Come on, go ahead.
I mean, there's a little bit of concern, I think, from people, but the defense has been so improved. You know, he talks about it all the time that he wants to be a two-way player, the full court ball pressure. He's in incredible shape. He's an incredibly hard worker. All we hear about is how hard of a worker he is and what a tone that sets for everybody else. So there's that. And then the playmaking, I mean, he had one of the best assist to turnover ratios last year in limited minutes.
Because he doesn't turn it over.
Yeah, he really doesn't. I mean, he had 3 tonight, but generally speaking, he has one of the best assist to turnover ratios of any high usage guard in the NBA. I think he's second on the team after Derek White, who has been very effective in that way as well. So it's the all around play. I mean, 11 rebounds at his size is ridiculous. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's just some of it is hustle, some of it is hard, but then a lot of it is also technique that he's just figured out at this point. So I think we're just seeing a guy who's hitting his prime and everything is kind of clicking at the same time. And it is, I know I talk about all the time, but it is kind of the big story of this team because everybody else is pretty much who they were last year.
Yeah.
And so this is the big difference. This is the big change from last season. And if it's sustainable into the playoffs, then we're talking about something that could change the team for the next few years.
Exactly. That's the thing is like, you know, we talk about, we've mentioned it with Keita as found money, and Keita is fine. He serves his role. But if you were able to get any contributions out of him, that's something you didn't expect. But again, I've said this openly. This is the story of the season, clearly, because you looked at this roster and thought they're set, right? And if, you know, the Jays are pretty fully baked at this point, you know, like might they get a little better, more savvy? Sure. But also, you know, they're well in their prime right now. They are who they are, and that's great. And Porzingis is, and Holiday is, and Derek White, we already saw him, you know, go up. And the story of last year was was everybody, but Derek White was a massive story last year because he's playing at a legit all-star level. This year, it's absolutely Pritchard for all of the reasons you stated. Is you just added a new player, essentially, someone who didn't exist before to a team. It's that joke, like, what do you get for the girl? What do you get for the guy who's got everything? Like, apparently this, like, and it's almost it's an embarrassment of riches at this point. And it's strange to think. We're going to bring in Bobby here, who's hanging out. What's up, Bobby? Just got out of the locker room. We're talking about Pritchard because Noah just wouldn't let it go, and was like, come on, can we talk about Pritchard before Bobby gets here and starts talking about Luke? And I said, fine. But I want to ask you got out of the locker room. You were asking Porzingis the questions. They dodged a bullet, right?
Yeah, seems like, and we'll see if he needs some time off here. He always seems to lean on the side of, I'm going to be all right, I'm going to play, and the team, obviously, looking at tonight, goes in a more cautious direction with him. But they have a bunch of days off coming up here until Thursday. So I do think it's feasible that he could play the next game after some treatment there, just like after the last injury where there was 4 days off. But he said he's dealt with something like this before. Happened in the first quarter, so he was able to play through it for probably about a quarter up until there was 3 minutes left in the second. And then once he told the training staff that it was getting sensitive there, that's when they pulled him out, because nothing happened right before he left, which is why I was asking you, did you see anything there? Because there was nothing. He went to the bench and sat down and grabbed it for a second, and then he was out of there. So it did affect them, I felt like. Obviously, no Al tonight. Luke had to play like 7 minutes to start the third, and the Wizards were running, and that's what they've done in every game here, is really push the pace and challenge the Celtics in that area. So second quarter looked a little sloppy. They didn't have that outlet in Porzingis there, but fortunately it doesn't look like they'll be missing him for too long here. It's just, this is the story, right? We said he's not going to re-injure the surgery that he went through there, or at least there doesn't seem to be any concern about that. But is the next thing always right around the corner with him? And this is obviously completely different on the opposite foot.
Yeah, that's what we talked about beforehand, Bobby, is that fear is never going away, right?
No, it is just always something. And it doesn't even seem to be anything that he's doing wrong or their management of him. And it's funny, he got hurt in the game that they were resting Al last week, and then tonight they rest Al and Porzingis gets hurt again. So they're trying to manage those two.
See what he's doing, Noah?
Down the last 2 nights.
You see what he's doing here, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not.
You see what he's setting up right now? So it's pretty.
It's
crafty.
where the show is headed, John. It's where the show is headed. We haven't even touched on it.
It's pretty crafty. He knows what he's doing. Well, and so because you're already down a big, and Porzingis goes out, and who comes in to save the day?
Luke. Luke was great. Yeah, and he played those first 7 minutes of the third. I feel like that's the longest he's ever played in a row because he came off the court just drenched in sweat, exhausted, and again, it was an up and down game. And I don't think they thrived in that second half. Certainly offensively, the offense was not good after halftime, but they managed and defended well too. And Pritchard was just talking about like the Wizards take some crazy shots and they hit some of them. So you do have to deal with that unpredictability a little bit. It's funny, John, this team's awful, but they haven't looked like it against the Celtics.
I mean, because the Celtics are playing with their food, there, but they're pretty awful. I mean, I know Poole's had a bit of a resurgence, and Bilal has been pretty good too. So like they have some things, but they also have 3 wins. I'm not exactly sure what it is that that Sarr is trying to do.
No, he's all over the place offensively.
He's all over the place, man. And no matter what, they target him on defense. They let him shoot when he's like, by all means, take the 3. Like, I don't know what it is that he does or what they want him to do. He's a real mess.
Yeah, it's not pretty, especially all those spin moves inside, and Porzingis is just standing there watching him.
He's just
it up over him.
It's baffling.
Yeah, but I do think, and I wrote about this tonight, I do think even though this team has no chance of laying a finger on the Celtics, I do think they try to play the way that bothers the Celtics a little bit. And Joe talked about this before the game and a little bit in the week before, is that Memphis game, pace-wise, affected the Celtics a little bit. I think they gave up 41, he said, in transition in that game. And a lot of it he blamed on Boston's turnovers, and they turned the ball over a little bit tonight again. I don't know what they finished with, but they were at 12 in the third quarter.
Finished with 18.
Yeah, so he doesn't like where the turnovers are going, and I think that's bleeding into their transition defense, which hasn't been great at times this year. I looked it up. They're third in allowing fast break points per game, so it's pretty good, as with a lot of their ratings. But you've talked about this in the past, John, like faster guards, a team that wants to play quick. Indiana, you remember that series, obviously. Yeah. That's something that can at least make the Celtics adjust a little bit. And they like playing fast too. But when you start playing up and down against Boston, I do think they can be prone to turn it over a little bit more. I do think it can keep the game close for longer stretches. And obviously the Wizards aren't able to sustain clean basketball and actually keep the game close. But Memphis, they played fast. They spread the Celtics out and made it challenging on them. Indiana did that earlier this year. Chicago, a couple games coming up against them, they were able to get a lot of threes up and play quick. I think that's going to be the formula for pushing the Celtics. And who's actually able to execute it over the course of a series? There's probably like 1 or 2 teams that could do it. But that seems to be the formula. And I've noticed it in every game they've played against the Wizards so far. Washington doesn't have the talent or consistency to be able to actually pull it off all game. But in every first quarter, they've actually played them tight by just getting downhill, playing fast, getting a lot of shots up, and making the Celtics move.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's where you're going to, the teams that can do that to the Celtics, that can speed them up. The guards that, we've seen, Holiday, Holiday's similar to Smart in terms of his defense. And you remember the thing that got us in trouble with Marcus was talking about him, struggling to stay in front of quicker guards, which was correct. The Holiday has that too, like he's a spectacular team defender positionally. He always puts himself in the right place, but yeah, there's guys who can take him off the dribble. We've seen it happen a few times already this year. I know, and some fans have expressed some concern over it, but that's going to happen. There's definitely some guys out there. You've seen White have tough days with certain people before. It's just kind of part of it. Like you can't do everything, spectacularly well. They do most of it, but that is always the team that just goes. And if they're able to knock down their shots too, or if they're able to work and get the Celtics rotation and knock down threes, yeah, those are the teams that might be able to to hang with them. It was interesting. And Indiana didn't. Indiana did not shoot a lot of threes. They just kind of went at them, there. So yeah, there's some matchup. There's some teams that can match up with them a little bit better, but you're right. Washington just can't sustain it for 48. They could play a near perfect game for 3.5 quarters and the Celtics can still find a way to win.
And that's always the thing.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, all of these really bad teams hang in there. I thought the same thing about Detroit last year, where all we heard about is how historically bad they were, but the Celtics went to overtime against them. Like, it just, at the end of the day, you have NBA players that can get hot, that can, are athletic, that can do good things. And so, to me, the Celtics don't really controlled this game for the most part, even though they had some lulls in the second half, and I don't feel like it was ever really in question. And that's kind of all you can expect against even the worst team in the league. Like, that's just the way that it's going to go. I mean, they beat Denver, so they have the ability to string together a 48-minute game.
I want to go back and watch that game. How the hell?
I know. I didn't see that game. I remember we were at the Garden and Jokic was putting up crazy numbers. But so all of these teams are capable of beating anybody. But the reality is Celtics were up by 20 for most of this one, and so it really wasn't. It wasn't much of a toss-up.
Yeah, I saw no Brogdon, no Kispert, no Kuzma coming in this one. I was like, At least we got a quarter. But they have the worst net rating in NBA history, John. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that.
Bobby, when the show kicked off, I called for relegation. I don't think this team should be allowed to play. Like,
it doesn't feel like a
Sal was
major
being
league
really funny
product.
on the broadcast about them.
Yeah.
He had some good lines.
You should take the bottom 4 teams and have them just put them in a league and let them only play each other 82 times every year, and one of them gets to come back into the league. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to be this bad. This is so unprofessionally, comically bad. This team, I said
this to a couple people I talked to in the league. I'm like, do these teams realize that it's not the old lottery system where if you go all the way to the bottom, you have the best odds? That's what it seems like they think is going to happen. If they're the worst team by far, they're going to have the best odds, but you don't anymore.
I mean, the Hawks had the number 1 seed last year.
Yeah, number 1 pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tougher, but yeah, I mean, it's less about trying to be the worst. It's more about not trying to be good at all.
Any good at all.
Yeah.
And that annoys me. Obviously, Brooklyn took a step in that direction too, and they were actually playing pretty competitive.
Yeah, until they got rid of Schroeder, and now that's it.
They almost got rid of Cam Johnson too. It sounded like in that deal, which would have been interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. As far as this game goes, other thoughts here, and we did talk up Pritchard a little bit. And obviously Luke came in and had made his impact. Tatum quietly did this. Again,
he missed some shots bad early too, and he got it together.
Yeah. So, that was that. Jalen, as we said.
I was going to flag one thing, John. I think Sam Hauser's injury from last week. I thought he was going to be out for a little bit of time. Looked great in practice the other day. Was getting up shots. Thought he looked really good tonight. So that's a good sign. And we've talked about how important he is to this team, especially in the regular season, but just providing backup depth. I thought he looked like he hadn't really missed much of a beat. And that was how he was looking before this injury too. So I'm glad that the time off didn't disrupt him too much, because after the back, I felt like he came back and wasn't exactly the same, and then was finally hitting a groove and then had that adductor strain. So that was a good sign here.
Yeah. It is. I wouldn't have noticed a thing. I totally agree. He looked perfectly fine.
Yeah. And again, that layoff, great timing for him, Porzingis, all the guys who got hurt coming out of that Memphis game there. But it's a bummer. He struggled to stay healthy this year. Still had the back thing on today, but looked good. And they needed those shots. He and Pritchard gave them off the bench into the second unit after slow starts for Brown and Tatum. And we've seen that throughout the year. I mean, at this point, we're probably talking about like 8, 9, 10 games, Noah, right? Where they're off to bad starts and then these guys come in and save them. So it's become important.
Yeah. A couple things around the league. We mentioned it here, but Bobby's favorite player, Dennis Schroeder, gets traded. Bobby refuses to acknowledge that Dennis Schroeder is pretty good at basketball.
Are you anti-Schroeder?
Oh my God.
I didn't like him here.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I don't think I was always some other people on him, but John and I go back and forth on him where
you and 90% of the Celtics media with your torches, drove him out of town. You were so like,
And then
like he was to blame for everything going wrong that season, and he was one of the bright spots. While he was playing, he saved them from themselves so often. But anyway,
he had
fine.
that crazy game against the Bucks, I remember, but he didn't play a style that fit with what they were trying to build at that time. And I think that was the biggest problem. It was a good signing, good attempt at a signing there that was amazing value at the time on the mid-level. So I liked what they were going for there. And he had some good moments, right? But this
is exactly right. And we talked about this on our chat. He was blamed for Marcus's shortcomings. He really was.
Yeah, but he has the same shortcomings, essentially.
No, different ones. Different ones.
I love watching him. And there has to be a way for him to be able to translate some of the greatness that he's had on the Germany team and bring that to an NBA team. Like, there has to be a way. Watching him.
Well, that was funny.
Yeah.
Because Shams, when he was reporting this, said, "Oh yeah, Steph and them in Golden State love what they saw from him in Germany." Steve Kerr too, obviously.
How could you not?
So, like, is that what they're going off here? Because yes, he's been great in those circumstances. He's had spurts of greatness in other spots in the NBA. But whether it's the ball stopping tendencies or the shot that comes and goes, and he's an okay defender, but he's more of a like quick hands, like take risks, get steals kind of defender than a sound one. I don't know how that's gonna fit in out there. Like, remember when Paul was there, and then who was the other guy they had out there who didn't fit that great? Oubre. Like, I feel like he's gonna fit in like those guys did, where they're good players, but they have a very unique system out there that I'm not sure how he's gonna fit into, other than just come off the bench and spell Curry, I guess.
Yeah, it's also possible they're going to flip him before he ever puts on a Warriors jersey, from what I've understood.
Yeah,
really?
Well, that's what some of the reports. These are not my sources. I think that's what some of the reports have said. Is that they're also looking at other free agent options, and I think there's a chance that he doesn't necessarily stay.
Okay.
I don't love his fit there. I'm a big Dennis Schroeder fan.
I don't love it either, actually.
But I don't love that fit for him.
That'd be interesting if he never plays.
I like the fit for him on a bad team, so maybe that's saying something.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's a piece of news from around the NBA. Another thing I wanted to hit on.
I will say real quick, if he goes to Miami for Butler, that whole thing makes more sense, right? Because then Melton's not just going there with his torn ACL, because the Heat want to keep winning by all accounts, and Schroeder would make sense in Miami. Yeah,
speaking of keep winning, that's something the Sixers won't be doing. Joel Embiid suffered a sinus fracture. He's out. Who knows how long? Jared McCain, torn meniscus, out indefinitely. So this doom season continues on there. There's almost nothing to say. I'm not like rooting for injuries. I just can't believe what a shit show it is.
It's shocking.
I don't understand how it seems like certain franchises are so plagued by injuries, like the Pelicans and the 76ers, that is it just bad luck? Are there other factors? Well, there feels like there has to be something in addition to the bad luck.
I mean, the Embiid thing is freaky, right? Though, I mean, like that's a total bad luck thing. But him being injured all the time, this is a guy who almost didn't play a game in the NBA because of tricky foot surgeries that he had there, and big guys at his weight, like that's just an injury waiting to happen. So it's not super surprising that Embiid was suffering some of the other injuries. This one is definitely freaky and weird, and so is the McCain one.
Yeah, McCain was so fun to watch. I'm bummed for him because I feel like he kind of had Rookie of the Year in the bag.
Yeah.
76ers fans and reporters that I know, like, he was the one fun thing about the season. So super unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he fell on his back/head, which was the real concern there. So for it to be a torn meniscus coming out of that game was stunning.
Yeah.
Who knows who's going to show up on Christmas? That's what I was thinking watching that game last night.
Yep.
Oh, true.
And lastly, Bobby's in Washington because he can't be in Vegas watching the NBA Cup final. So he had to go somewhere, and he begged me, "Can I go to Washington?" I was like, "All right, Bobby, go."
I love Washington, even though I don't love this game.
He loves it. But Bucks facing the Thunder in the NBA
Cup finals. Look at this. This could have been you.
So this is a fun matchup. The Bucks have completely flipped the script on their season and are playing good basketball. We saw them here, and it was, a definite competitive team that I do think, again, Bobby, I'm always kind of a pro Bucks guy, even last year when they were struggling. Like, don't sleep on these guys. And they're playing much, much better basketball here. And the Thunder, and Noah was talking about it earlier, are this super fun, exciting team, but yet it feels like again, we saw the reports on the secondary market listings on how easy it was to get tickets to the semifinal games out in Vegas, and there's concern that like there's just not enough juice there without major market teams. And is the cup flailing around? And again, this on the heels of the NBA rating stories and this and that, just more doom and gloom for stuff that the league isn't doing great. But here you are with these two teams in the cup finals. How do you feel the buzz around the cup is this year versus last? Have they sustained it? Has it taken a step back? Is it about the same? Noah?
I think it went down. I mean, LeBron being involved last year was such a bonus for the league. And the fact that he won, I thought that it was kind of setting them in a good path. Like, couldn't have scripted it better, really. And that there was that whole Tyrese Halliburton emergence. Again, I don't want to go back to I have to like really think this point through to see if I actually believe this, but I feel like last year with Halliburton, like there was so much excitement and energy around him, and there just isn't that league-wide with this Thunder team. And they're both small markets. The only difference is that it's an American superstar versus not. I don't want to go crazy.
The
on
Pacers
that point,
were putting up $140 a game, so I think the pace that the offense was playing at that time was exciting for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, people want defense, and SGA and the Thunder have the best defense and like one of the best defenses in NBA history right now. So I don't know what people want, but I don't feel there's a lot of excitement around this matchup or around the cup or around either of these teams. So hopefully it changes. I'm gonna do my best to lock into this game on Tuesday and play my part, because I feel like the media also has been a little bit down about the cup. And I have a lot of things that I think structurally could be different, but you got a good matchup here. These are two good teams. This could be a finals preview. It's not my prediction for a finals preview, but I think everybody should be excited about the fact that two really good teams made the tournament with some, high profile stars too.
Yeah, the Bucks game was great, especially the Giannis block that was reminiscent of the finals one, and he's been going crazy through this entire run. The Thunder, maybe the final will be that showcase for them to finally look like themselves, and they're not their full selves without Chet right now. Still a great team, still getting some good performances across the board, particularly from Hartenstein. So, I would be watching them closely if you're a Celtics fan, because that finals matchup does feel inevitable right now, given the direction that they've gone in to start this year, and talking about pace and athleticism and defense in their case, actually being one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. They're that team that you're looking at, maybe the only team that could actually beat the Celtics this year. So I would watch for that. There's been a lot of moments I love throughout this cup. The Knicks night where the Celtics almost got in, I've talked about, and I like the Orlando Milwaukee game as well. And you have a good mix of teams here in this thing. The Houston Thunder game was tough to watch last night, the rock fight style that one took on. But when you have like Orlando's, Houston's, and those kind of teams in this thing, with the Warriors made it and lost, and you're Milwaukee making it to the final, even though you're an older team that's already proven itself. I like the mix of teams that's been in it. I've enjoyed the games. The intensity's been good on these. And you know what? People just don't understand what it means, and that's going to take a while. I don't think there's any structural thing you can do
about
to
the
make
cup
this matter. Yeah,
the reality is it doesn't mean anything, and I think people understand that. So again, you got to catch lightning in the bottle, like Noah said. LeBron being into it, the Pacers scoring 140 every night and being super entertaining, the novelty of it the first time through, the fact that the players did have a little bit of buy-in, so you did feel that there was some juice and energy to it. I think it did take a big step back this year, just the whole way through. It just felt like it was just an afterthought. I don't know why that is, because it's executed much the same way. The tiebreakers being goofy, a 3-1.
I love the tiebreakers.
A 3-1 team that lost a single game by a point, not making it. It's just odd. Like, you got to figure out a better way to do it. And I think that they need to keep tinkering, but this definitely was weird. Really, before we close, I wanted to go back to the game a little bit. We talked about Tatum's night, and he was a little bit off, but another thing, Hauser had that break with his injury. It was weird, right, to not see Jason Tatum for the length of time that he was out. Was it 8 days that he's had off between games? Because when he's listed on every single time he's ever been listed as questionable on injury report, you know that it's a bullshit injury, and it's just kind of setting the table for potential load management if that's what they choose to do. And it was actually surprising that he was out last game, was it not, to you two? There was like, oh, is there actually an issue? And again, you see Tatum on the bench. He's got the double braces on, and there's something going on there that he's definitely dealing with. Tatum talked about what's going on with his knee and some other stuff after the game. So let's listen to that real quick.
Physically, and has that knee bothered you at all to begin this year?
Feeling good. A couple days off helped for sure. And it's just something that kind of comes and goes. Something I've dealt with before. Obviously.
How do you feel about where that shot's at and being able to get up a lot of
I feel good. Shooting the ball, I guess, a little bit better than last season. I shot the ball well last year, just the playoffs. I didn't shoot as well as I wanted to. So, and that's a good sign. It's obviously things I can get better at. And I think that's a good thing.
Bobby, they weren't respecting your question there. Can you tell them to keep it down next time? I don't love that. I don't love it. I don't love that. I don't love that. I don't love that at all. It's something I've dealt with, something I've been dealing with it. He's got something lingering that is just going to be there.
At least it's dealt with in the past too.
Yeah, I don't love it.
Yeah, he always seems to be playing through stuff, whether it's the wrist or whether it's this thing this year. There always seems to be something there that he just plays through. And obviously we talked about after last practice there how, they expect him and Brown and other guys to be able to play through pain. And I think that's what this is. I don't think this is anything that's going to cost him time in a significant spot. Now, is it effective playing through this kind of pain? I mean, I do like how he's playing to start this year, John. I don't think there's anything I look at here
absolutely.
where I'm like,
the process is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's right now managing those slower shooting nights because for some reason or another, and we keep talking about this, Noah, he'll have like a 7 for 11 3-point shooting game, and then he'll have like an 0 for 10 one. And that's how his numbers end up averaging out. It's so crazy because that's usually not how it goes to get to 38% or wherever he lives.
Yeah, I think he's at 36% right now from 3 on the season. That's a little bit down from last year, but certainly better than he was shooting in the playoffs. Kind of reminiscent of the previous seasons prior to last year. But I don't know. I don't find that injury update concerning. Maybe I'm overly nonchalant about those guys and their pains, but I feel like Jalen, Jason, Drew, they're always going to have a knee thing or a soreness thing. Like it's just they're the miles that they're playing that, 3 of those guys playing through the summer. Like I think it's just kind of the reality of being an NBA athlete. And a lot of teams you wouldn't hear as much about it because they're just going to play through. They have to play through stuff. And I think the Celtics are in a position right now where they're going to prioritize rest and they have so much faith in their backups too. But I don't know. I didn't take that update to be concerning personally. I feel like he actually said he's dealt with this in the past. So Drew said last week that he had not dealt with his knee thing. So that was more concerning to me that this is the first time in his career that he's dealing with a certain knee pain. Whereas Jason seems like this is something he's familiar with.
The Drew one, I have my eyes on more for sure, especially the way he's played to start this year.
I don't love 26 games into the year dealing with the nagging injuries that everyone's dealing with at the 75 game mark. Everyone enters the playoffs banged up because you just played a whole season. I don't love it early. So again, I would
the second game in a week was
once
strange.
Again, I don't think we've talked about saving Jason Tatum from himself and the fact that he refuses to sit. For the love of God, sit the guy. If you have a lingering thing that you might need to rest, oh my God, just take 2 weeks off, dude. Like it's fine. Like that should be okay. I would load manage the crap out of this team. They're going to be the 1 or the 2 seed. It's fine. You just need perfect health entering the playoffs, and you're just going to walk to the finals again. So just get there by all means necessary. So yeah, there's a bit of White was another one who's dealing with it. Everybody's dealing with a little something way too early in the year, and you can't sit them all. So I would just kind of rotate through and not be afraid to do that.
Horford tonight too is a little different. Normally it's been the back-to-backs, but they stole one for him tonight between like 3 days off and 2 days off. So
well, that's why it was rest and it wasn't the toe injury.
Yeah.
If it was a back-to-back, it would have been listed as toe.
Yeah.
The big toe.
Right. The downside
in the past.
The downside to all of these ridiculous first player to blank stats that people point out with Tatum is that his mileage is extremely high for somebody at his age. So just reduce that a little bit. Just leave the car in the garage. It's okay. Anyway,
they can win almost all of these
every
games.
Game. Oh my God, you can sit 3 guys a night and win 80% of the games on their schedule. Just do it.
If they rested to the maximum, though, Pritchard might actually make the All-Star game.
Yeah, you never know.
Don't get me started. I already did my Pritchard spiel.
Don't get her started. We've gone an hour, which is I think as much as this game deserves. So we're gonna wrap it up. It is Sunday and it is a school night, so we'll let you all get back to whatever it is that you're doing. There's plenty of Patriots coverage on the Patriots channel. If you want to check that out, if you missed the
Can you
Patriots,
give me like a 2 minutes or 1 minute synopsis of what the hell happened?
I'll tell you the story of the game. There's two major stories. One, it was a really dog, you know what, performance coming off of a bye week. That it was a disgrace against this team. A disgrace.
That's
okay. So, but also beyond that was lack of urgency or lack of imagination, and simply just kind of dinking and dunking and throwing screen passes and not trying to press the ball downfield, not letting Drake May run, not do anything, and almost just rolling over and accepting defeat. It was pathetic. But the two stories that are by far the biggest stories of this game was Jonathan and Robert Kraft were caught in the owner's box, clearly trashing the offensive play calling with lip reading that's clear as day. You can see what they're saying, bashing the play calling. And then after the freaking game, Gerard Mayo asked why Drake May didn't run it at the goal line, and was that an option? And he goes, "You said it, not me." Basically just backing over his offensive coordinator with a bus. So that's the most immature thing I've ever heard a head coach say. Literally just us, the offensive coordinator. I didn't call it. You're the head freaking coach. It was everything about today was disgraceful. They've had worse losses in terms of looking bad. This was a horrible look for the regime, from the owners to the coach and what's going on with that team. Awful. And I did this show because Bobby had to go to Washington, and we needed somebody along with Noah to hold it down, and I'm fine with it. But oh my God, if I was on the Patriots post-game show, I would have lost my mind. It's probably best I wasn't there because those guys would have hated listening to me. It was awful. Awful. Anyway, sorry. That's it. That's more than 2 minutes.
That was good.
It was awful. So you guys want to check it out, go check it out. Patriots channel, lots more coverage. We're gonna have more stuff in the next couple of days too with that. But holy wow, that was bad stuff today. Really bad stuff. Anyway, Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, and nothing else. Burn the rest of it. Burn it. I'm done.
So glad I only watch basketball.
I'm done.
Yeah, couldn't be two more opposite experiences right now.
Yeah, it's this is amazing. Right, this is great. This is great. This is, again, even a Washington game is enjoyable. Sad state of affairs with the Patriots, but happy to have you here. We are back, as we said, on Thursday, and then we got a string of games, including Christmas. And yeah, we'll be doing a Christmas garden report because that's what we do. So keep it with us. We're also going to have some cool announcements about something coming up for CLNS on our YouTube channels that we want to tell you about. We're going to tell you about that a little bit later on, but definitely stay tuned. There's going to be more stuff and more options for you to choose from, which is coming up. So we'll start to kind of trickle out those details in the next week or so. Other than that, it was really great hanging out on a Sunday. Thank you very much to Noah. Thank you to Bobby, who's in DC. Check out our channel. Check out Celtics blog for Noah's written coverage and CLNS media for what Bobby has to say. And as always, it was a ton of fun, and we will see you next time.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke